Hi, fellow colleagues and students. I'm making this podcast primarily for my students at the American University in Cairo in the rhetoric department, but this could be for everybody. And my name's Sean, and I love Chicago style. Chicago style is pretty wonderful. Okay, so what I want to show you all today is how I like to use Chicago style and the reasons I like to use it. But before I get into all of that, I want to talk a little bit about citations. Now, why are citations, important to us, and why is it important for us to cite? And this may seem, simple to some, but a lot of people, especially freshmen students, have never ever really used citations before. So I wanted to talk about a term that I not just myself but everyone talks about in academia about why citing is one of the fundaments, the pillars of the Ivory Tower. Why having proper citation is fundamental, yeah, to good academic work. And in discussing this, I wanted to use a terminology or term standing on the shoulders of giants. So when we open this up, and so what does that mean, right? We go to images here, and that's just a really pretty image that I like a lot. It's right here. We'll open this up, and you can see this pretty clearly, I think. Go to, I don't know whose blog this is, but this is a great picture of a little boy on the shoulder of Albert Einstein. Now, this is a good symbol of what we all are. Symbolically, we're like this little boy, and we're standing on the shoulders of great academic thinkers, men and women who have changed the way in which we view the world. Okay, and so consequently, uh, it's really important that you know how to cite because you're giving credit back to those great leaders, those great thinkers who changed the world. Okay, and then you're taking that information that you're taking from these other sources, you're picking it up, and then you're doing something new with it. And that's really all that knowledge production, all that the institution of academia is about, really. It's about producing new knowledge, new understandings, new critiques, new problematizations, right? Problematizing is very key, right? And so like all of this is fundamental to what you need to be doing in my classes, but not just in my classes, in all the classes in academia. Okay, that's why the university exists. And when I say the university, I mean it in the plural, general, worldwide sense, because the academia or the university, the worldwide university, this all is interconnected. It doesn't matter if you're in China or you're in the Philippines or you're in Egypt or you're in Germany or you're in Chile or you're in Alberta, Canada. It doesn't matter. Academia, the university is interconnected, interwoven, and citations is a fundamental part of that. Now, obviously, why cite? Well, one is so you don't plagiarize, you don't copy from someone. But that actually, in some ways, is, while very important and should not be ignored, clearly, citing is about fundamentally not copying someone else's work. But it's more than that. And that leads me to number two. Again, it's back to our idea of standing on the shoulders of giants. I mean, you are this little boy, right? And you're standing right on top of Albert Einstein's shoulders, right? For example, it's important to acknowledge what Einstein had done for you or has done for you. Now, again, this bust might not be Einstein. This bust could be Nietzsche. This bust could be Plato. This bust could be Foucault. This bust could be Bourdieu. This bust could be Althusser. This bust could be Frederick Jameson. Whatever it is, like all these important thinkers, whoever it is, you need to reference that person. Okay. I mean, yes, it's about not copying that person, but on a bigger way, it's showing that you have the credentials, that you have read, that you have processed these important thinkers, and then you have applied the important thinkers into your work. And that's what we want to see. Your instructors want to see the application of other ideas in a new way into your work. Okay, so again, other ideas, the shoulders of the giants, process, thought about into your work. Okay, so that's why we do citations. So I have some examples of citations that I wanted to show you. So and I'll post these articles for my students in our various online spaces and areas. And those of you who are not, well, you can always request these. But the point is, let's take a peek at this. Wasn't what I wanted. Where'd that go? Aha. Okay. So here's a piece that I wrote about a year ago, and it's called "Blackness, Whiteness, and the Turkish Race in the Land of Anatolia." Now, I do a lot of research about Turkey. So I lived there for many years. So this is a piece on race and the process of blackness and whiteness in Turkey. Okay, and so when we look through this piece, we can look at this first underlined piece. When calling himself a Zenci Turk or Siyah Turk, Erdogan refers to a state where blackness equates with the common Islamist people of Turkey, who have been oppressed by high-class secular white white Turkish elites. That's a mistake. Anyway, this is a popular trope for Erdogan, one which he has used often, akin to the prize fighter's punch that his secular opponents cannot seem to deflect. Okay, now these two sentences, one sentence is my own critique. It's based somewhat on what I read, which was the second sentence. And what I'm doing here is something called paraphrasing. Okay. When you paraphrase, what you'll do is you will basically say what the text is talking about. Okay. So this process, and again, let's go back over to it, is a very effective process because it allows us to again prove we've read other important sources, prove that those thinkers have influenced us, allow us to say to our audience, we've read this person, we've processed their thoughts, and so the use of paraphrasing is really, really effective. It allows us to really begin the process of thinking or standing on those shoulders, thinking in a bigger way. So I wanted to bring this up real quickly for us all. So that's what I'm going to do here. Bring this over. And you should be able to see this pretty easily in a second. So we look here, paraphrase is a restatement of the meaning of a text or a phrase using other words. Okay. The term itself is derived via Latin, paraphresis, from Greek, meaning additional manner of expression. The act of paraphrasing is also called Okay. Well, at any rate, so this is a really additional manner of expression. I like that. I like that a lot. Um, you're expressing in another way an idea, and that's very important. Okay, so let's go. Let's go a little bit more into the piece, and we can pop back into it here. Now you're going to notice there's a little number here. Now this is what's called Chicago style. You put a little number on the outside of the sentence that you are paraphrasing, or at least citing. All forms of paraphrasing are citing in a way. You cite by paraphrasing, or you cite directly with the direct quote. But after you cite, or if you use something that you're citing, you need to, in Chicago style, the style is to put a small number right after the sentence. So you see this. This is actually the third reference that I have. And now the second thing that you can be doing is a direct quote. Okay, and when you use a direct quote, you want to how to explain it? When you use a direct quote, you want to explain in the text, in some ways, oftentimes, where you're getting the information. Now, in this case, actually, in this example, we don't actually have a lead sentence or the beginning of a sentence that tells us where the information is coming from. However, we notice this. In this speech, Erdogan implied, okay, so here we're talking about the president of Turkey, Erdogan, and we're talking about in this speech. So we know that he's making a speech. So this, in some ways, is public record, right? So do I need to have this directly, or do I need to say where exactly I got this information from? Maybe not right here in the beginning, simply because it's a speech that everyone knows about. But sometimes, both with paraphrasing or with using direct quotes, sometimes in the sentence itself, you want to talk about where the source is coming from. So as Kurzban and Sciloli write on page 57 of their report on the morality of superheroes, then you would give that information. And you would give the direct quote, or perhaps a paraphrasing. But the great thing about this process of citation is that you don't always need to put in, obviously, all that information into the sentence itself. You can, but you don't have to. In my case here, I don't do it at all. In the case I was just showing all of you in the speech by Erdogan, I don't actually say at all where I got it, but I explain it in a way that it's understood that it's a public knowledge thing. He's making a common speech. Now, of course, I will need at the bottom, at the end of this, I will need to give a full information, a full disclosure. In fact, you'll always need to do that, right? Like when you use Chicago, even if you mention and explain everything earlier on in the sentence, you're still going to need to put the small number outside of the sentence, whether or not it's, again, direct quote or paraphrasing or a paraphrased idea. You're still going to need to do it. Even if you mention where it's from and everything else in the actual sentence, you're still going to need to use this small letter, or small number. And then, of course, we see here that we actually have a direct quote from the speaker here. Okay, and there it is. Now, that doesn't always happen that way. Right? It's not quite always like that. This can you can do kind of other things with this. Let's go look down here a little bit. right down here. Okay, now we're almost there. Oh, that was it. Okay, this is a great example. Here we have a thinker discussing an important Islamist in Turkey. Now, we're actually taking a direct quote from an outside source on the thinker, and we're applying that quote into our critique. So here we can actually make a direct quote. If it's over more than 3 lines, you separate it just like this. You create a condensed, indented quote, and yeah, and you just show it like this. You indent it on this side here, on this side, and then on this side too. And yeah, you can put it together like this. And you see some other examples of this right here. So we have anything more than 3 lines, you'll actually create it just like this. And it looks really nice. I think it's a more effective, or it's the most effective way to cite, and I really support it because it just looks so nice and it's so intuitive. So we can see here we've got this this idea. There was likely no better alternate voice rising nationally in protest to the laicism and materialism of the Kemal state in the 1920s and 1930s than that of Bediüzzaman Said Nursi. Okay, so then I begin to discuss Nursi's position, and I'm able to throughout, I'm able to litter or put in pieces of citations just with little small numbers. So I think that's really, really nice. Yeah, and this is a fun paragraph too. As a believer in phrenology, leading young Turk intellectual Abdullah Cevdet, believing that his bad headaches were part of his own brain expanding. Now that is directly from a different book, right? And then that's next point. Cevdet applied his elite status in Ottoman society to his large brain, right? And this again is directly from an earlier text. Now, in closing, when you produce or when you use Chicago style, you're going to have endnotes, and these are notes that correlate with the numbers throughout. Now, the rules for endnotes, I'm not going to go over, because what you can do very easily is just go in and create something, or go to www.easybib.com. Now, I think you have to spend like $4 per month if you want to use Chicago. The other 2 versions, MLA and APA, are free on that website. But regardless, I think it's worth spending because it immediately creates your entire, all these endnotes. It creates the entire endnote list for you. The last thing, of course, that I wanted to show would be the bibliography, which is the last part of any piece. And so we can look at it here. And bib is, in many ways, what we would expect from bib. But you'll take the first, usually, unless there's some real specific information at the end of the first annotated note, and you'll put it into the bibliography right here. Okay, it's all lined up. It's all done alphabetical by the last name of the author, now, or the producer. Now, just to go back real quickly and show one last thing, actually, which I didn't remember, but I remember now. Let's look at the final paper here again. When you look at the final paper, you're going to see that the first mention of a new text will elicit this long bit of information. The last name, the first name, the title, where you got it from. So this actually comes from a website, the date, the access, etc., etc. All that's there. And then you can continue to, if you use this again, all you need to do at that point is give the last name, the title, but a bit of the title, not the whole title, like a word or 2 of the title that we can access and understand what you're talking about. You make that, you put that into an indentation, and then you state where you got it from. Now, if it's a If it's a website, then it's just a website, right? And we know where the website is. We can just go immediately to it and search it out. If it's a book, however, again, so here's the first time we mentioned this book. The first mention of it, you have the full layout. And this, again, is pretty much what you'll copy paste into your bibliography. Now, the difference is when you bring, like, for example, this into your bibliography, will you have 2 through 214 through 215? No, you'll take that out because you're just giving the book at that point. So the little bit of information at the end you won't use. Okay. Now, if you mention again, and I use this book quite a bit through the piece, Haniolu's Young Turks. So here's the full title, right? The Young Turks in Opposition is the name. But all I need is the last name here, right? And then I need something that looks like the title, okay? And then I need the page number I'm using. So here, I'm going to use Haniolu again. I'll use the last name, and then I'll just say Young Turks. So that's enough. It's indented. We understand what it is. And finally, just the page number that you use. So after the first mentioning of the text is the point at which you actually produce a lot of other quotes, but then you put them in a small manner. Okay, well, cool. I had fun showing you guys this. I hope this helps your process of citation. Of course, there's MLA and APA styles, and those are things you can go investigate in the library. I accept MLA and Chicago style in my classes. So great, fun working with you guys, fun talking, and I hope this was a meaningful and helpful podcast / screencast. Bye bye.